My name is Connor Reed, and if you had asked me a year ago whether I trusted my girlfriend, I would have said yes without hesitation. I'm 32, work in IT support, live a pretty quiet life in Seattle, and until recently, I thought I had a solid relationship with Leah Bennett. A woman who loved spontaneous adventures, late-night conversations, and making every room feel brighter just by being in it. But sometimes brightness blinds you until you finally step back and realize what you've been looking at wasn't light. It was a warning flare. It started on a Thursday afternoon around 3:17 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was on my lunch break, eating leftover pasta and scrolling through emails when my phone buzzed. Leah never texted during work hours unless something was urgent. So I wiped my hands on a napkin, picked up the phone and opened her message. Going on a trip with my ex this weekend. Don't be jealous. Just like that, casual, carefree. As if she were telling me she bought a new candle or was trying a different shampoo. I stared at the screen long enough for the message to blur. I read it twice, then a third time, waiting for some follow-up explanation, maybe a joking emoji, maybe an LOL. Maybe anything that suggested she hadn't just dropped a grenade and walked away. Nothing. My first instinct was to call her, but my second, stronger, clearer instinct was to stay still, breathe, and process. I'd learned over the years that reacting out of panic never helps. And something about that text felt like a test, the kind designed not to find an answer but to provoke a reaction. When I finally wrote back, I typed the words slowly, deliberately, one letter at a time. Don't worry, I won't be here when you get back. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I set the phone down and waited. Not for her reply, but for the numbness in my chest to settle into something recognizable. Leah and I had been together for almost 3 years. She knew my boundaries. She knew my history with dishonesty. She knew exactly what it meant to me when someone chose an ex over communication. And still she'd sent that text. No explanation, no conversation, just an expectation that I would swallow it and smile. But here's the thing. People often assume the quiet ones will bend forever. They forget that quiet is not the same as weak. Quiet means measured. Quiet means observant. Quiet means once the decision is made, it's already final. For 20 minutes my phone stayed silent. Then finally another message appeared. Connor, seriously, why would you say that? I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because in that moment I realized she hadn't expected consequences. She'd wanted reassurance, not accountability. She wanted me to say, "It's fine, Leah. Have fun. I trust you." But trust isn't something you toss into traffic and hope survives. By the time I got home from work, the sun was dipping behind the trees, casting long shadows across the living room. Her jacket was gone from the hook, meaning she'd left early. Maybe to see him. Maybe to get a reaction. Maybe because she assumed I'd calm down eventually, and everything would go back to how she preferred it. I walked through the apartment slowly, noticing every detail. Her half-finished iced coffee on the counter, her shoes kicked off near the doorway, the sweater she always borrowed from me draped over the couch armrest. It all looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. A relationship can feel whole one moment and hollow the next. It's strange how quickly that shift happens. My phone buzzed again. Connor, can we please talk? You're overreacting. It's not what you think. Answer me. For messages. Increasing urgency. No apology. I sat down at the dining table, the same place where we talked about travel plans, family plans, future plans, and realized how many of those plans required trust. Trust she had casually demolished with 10 careless words. I typed back, "We'll talk when you're home." Not because I wanted to hear excuses, not because I wanted explanations, but because closure is something you give yourself, not something you wait for someone else to offer. When she walked through the door 2 hours later, her expression was a mix of frustration and forced innocence. She tossed her bag onto the chair, crossed her arms and said, "Are you seriously doing this?" "Doing what?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Reacting like a human being? Expecting basic respect." "Sit down, Leah." She blinked, surprised by my calmness. She always interpreted calm as compliance. She was wrong this time. She sat and I began, not with anger, not with accusations, but with clarity. Because sometimes the quietest conversations are the ones that change everything. I looked at Leah across the table, studying her the way I used to when we first met. Eyes full of curiosity, smiles that lit up the room. Now all I saw was distance, calculated distance. She had planned this moment, and I was finally seeing it in full. I read your message. I started, my voice calm, almost too calm. I know you expected me to panic, to beg, to ask for reasons, but I won't. I'm not going to argue about what I already know. Her lips tightened. A small twitch of irritation. Connor, come on. You're overreacting. He's just a friend. We're just friends. Friends don't plan weekend trips together and announce it in a text like it's nothing. I interrupted. My eyes didn't leave hers. You didn't tell me because you wanted to test me, not because you trusted me. That's the truth. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. I could almost hear the unspoken words between us. The years of compromises, the nights spent questioning if love was still alive, the small betrayals disguised as harmless choices. She finally sighed like she was the one burdened by my presence and said, "You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's harmless." Harmless. The word echoed in my mind. Harmless to her maybe, but to me harmless meant dismissive. Harmless meant she didn't consider my feelings worth protecting. Harmless meant I had become optional. A footnote in her weekend adventure with someone she used to love. I took a deep breath. Leah, you're forgetting one thing. I don't do optional. I don't tolerate disrespect disguised as freedom. And I don't stay silent when I know my value. She looked at me, a flicker of shock in her eyes. I could see she wasn't used to this version of me, the version that refused to be small, refused to shrink to accommodate someone else's whims. I had been quiet for too long, measured for too long. And now I wasn't just measured. I was decisive. I'm leaving, I said. Simple. Clear. No drama, no threats, just truth. Her jaw dropped slightly. Leaving? Connor, what are you saying? I'm saying I won't wait for you to choose me, because you've already made your choice. And I won't be here when you come back from this trip. Her eyes filled with disbelief, maybe even panic. You can't be serious. This isn't how relationships work. Relationships work when both people are present. Fully and willingly, I said. And if one person decides they're elsewhere, emotionally, mentally, physically, then it's no longer a relationship. It's just coexisting. And I don't settle for coexistence anymore. She stood up abruptly, pacing, muttering under her breath, trying to regain control of a situation she thought she could manage. But for once I wasn't flustered. I had spent weeks preparing myself emotionally for this moment. For once I wasn't reacting out of anger or hurt. I was reacting out of clarity. I'll call you when I get back, she said, her voice shaky now, a shadow of the confidence she'd had when she sent that text. Don't, I replied. There's nothing to discuss. I'll be gone. I'll focus on myself and you focus on your choices. She froze. Then slowly she slumped onto the couch, the fight draining from her body. She realized too late that this wasn't a game, that the quiet, loyal man she assumed she could manipulate was gone. And in his place stood someone who had finally understood his own worth. I grabbed my bag, checked my keys and walked out the door. The air outside felt sharper, cleaner than it had in months. Freedom isn't loud. It isn't celebratory. It's quiet, subtle, almost unnoticeable until you take a deep breath and realize the weight of someone else's choices no longer rests on your shoulders. That weekend, I didn't sit at home wondering where she was. I didn't scroll through social media to see pictures of her smiling with him. I drove to the Oregon coast, rented a small cabin in Cannon Beach, and let the sound of the ocean wash over me. I thought about what had led us here, what I had tolerated, and what I deserved. And I realized something fundamental. Love isn't just about holding on. Sometimes it's about letting go. And letting go doesn't mean failure. It means clarity. By the time Sunday evening rolled around, I had made peace with the absence of Leah in my life. Her choices were hers. My life, my happiness, my self-respect, those were mine. And when she returned, I wasn't waiting. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't angry. I was free. Because the quiet ones, the ones you assume will bend, will forgive, will beg, are often the ones who leave with the most dignity. And once they decide to walk away, nothing pulls them back. I still wonder if she ever understood the gravity of her text. But it doesn't matter anymore. I learned something far more important. When someone shows you who they truly are, believe them. And when they disregard your worth, don't follow. Don't wait. Don't hope. Just leave. And that's exactly what I did.